Now, the young teen readers that have gotten into the Rotten Ruin series, you promote it very heavy through multimedia sources, obviously, and through workshops you hold and.
Yeah, and a bunch of other things. I do a lot of Skype visits, which is fun because a lot of libraries, they really can't afford to fly an author in to do a talk. But with Skype, I can be in my office and Skype right to the kids, no matter what library they're in, or what school library they're in across the country, and sometimes around the world, different places. We did one with Australia and so on, and it's a lot of fun because we get that to share it. I get the buzz of the fact that these kids are so enthused about it, and there's something about the new breed of teenagers. They're so much smarter than I thought they were, because I didn't have a lot of exposure to them for a while, and then I start teaching writing to kids, and I start Skyping with them, and there's a lot of negative press about the dumbing down of America. Those people who say that aren't talking to today's teens. They're smart, they're savvy, they're well read, they're enthusiastic. I love this, and also I will be doing some traveling, to different places around the country to meet these kids. We're going to Provo, Utah, Cheyenne, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, all different places around the country, and that'll be fun because I'll be going to several different schools in one day and meeting groups of kids in assemblies and just basically having fun with the zombie pop culture.
So you have whole audiences then when you go to schools. I mean, you have a captive audience.
Yeah.
And, wow, you must get hit with a lot of questions then.
I do, but it's fun because essentially we're all geeking out together. You figure what I write horror novels, science fiction, fantasy, thrillers, and comic books. I am a professional geek, and I get to geek out, and it's part of my business life. I mean, I have the coolest job in the world. And these kids, they really get into it. What's interesting is when sometimes the conversation takes a more serious turn, and kids identify with some of the more serious themes: loss, pain, various bits. Things like grief is a big part of it. Also, first love, loss of love. Those are elements that we deal with, and they ask intelligent, insightful questions, and that makes me have to go deep to be able to relate to them, which deepens. For me, it deepens the understanding of what I've written. Because sometimes what you write comes from such a deep place, you're not always aware of it when you're writing it. Sometimes see it when you reread your own writing. Anyone who thinks that writing is purely of the mind, is definitely not a writer. Writing happens on all different levels at once. And sometimes somebody catches a theme and that triggers a response, and you get into a nice, deep conversation. You really get to important issues, and you both walk away feeling like, wow, that was a conversation I will remember.
Now, obviously, you inspire tons of new teen writers, and I know you get plenty of questions on how do I become a writer, Mr. Maberry? Where do I start? How do you answer questions like that?
Well, it's funny. One of my writing students, I teach a class called Experimental Writing for Teens, and one of the kids from my class just landed a book deal, 3-book, 4-novella deal.
Wow.
It was announced Friday. And she went through the class. She learned, we taught her the craft of writing because it's important to know the craft. You're born with a certain degree of storytelling ability, but you have to learn the craft. Figurative language and description and pace and voice and so on. But you also need to learn the business of it. How do you write a query letter? What is a query letter? How do you approach an agent or find an agent? Those are things that I teach the kids, and it's stuff that I recommend that anyone who wants to be a writer go out and find. There are resources to teach you how to write a query letter, how to find an agent, and so on. If you understand that writing is an art, but publishing is a business, if you understand both aspects, you have a real shot at getting somewhere. And today's publishing world, they are looking to hear from teen writers. They want these new, exciting voices. A few years ago, we had Christopher Paolini write Aragon in that series. He was 13 when he was sold that. And it proved that not only could a teen write to publishable standards, the book can go on to become a major bestseller. So they're looking for the next kid and the next one and the next one and the next one. And the student of mine, Rachel Tafoya, who just sold this thing, I think she's going to be one of the next ones.
What was her genre, if you don't mind me asking?
It's urban fantasy. It's a vampire story with a real nice twist that I'm not going to spill because it's a book called Night House, and she brought a freshness to it and an interesting sensibility. I mean, her personality. She's a kind of a low-key kid, from the burbs in near Philadelphia, and she wrote a really dark, edgy book. it shows how much imagination, how much interior life teens have, and how they can express that in very eloquent ways.
Now, one last Rot and Ruin question, because Joe Ledger called me and said that I'm not allowed to speak about this in an interview, but on a hypothetical scale, there's rumors floating around about Rot and Ruin, and having some contracts and heading toward TV and movies. Where would we put on that 1 to 10 scale of its success right now?
The Rot and Ruin series, it's going. It's been optioned. It's going to be a film. Can't tell you who's going to be in it yet. We know the actor who's going to play the older brother. We know the producers, but they have not made their official announcement. So details are under wrap. Joe Ledger almost made it to TV. We almost made it to TV with ABC, but it got down to a split decision with the president of ABC between a Joe Ledger TV series and the remake of Charlie's Angels, and they went with Charlie's Angels, and it lasted 3 episodes and crashed and burned. So we're now shopping Joe Ledger around elsewhere. However, Joe Ledger shows up in the 3rd book in the Rot and Ruin series. So one way or another, we are going to see Joe Ledger on the screen.
Wonderful. Well, I love Joe Ledger. I mean, he just brings us such a different concept to stories, and for people who haven't read Joe Ledger, I would definitely suggest they get into some Joe Ledger novels.
He's my favorite character to write. I mean, he's a younger, thinner, tougher, more of a smart-ass version of me. And he's a Baltimore ex-Baltimore cop who's recruited by a secret government organization to stop terrorists who have radical bioweapons or radical technologies. And he's a very snarky sense of humor. The 4th book in the series, Assassin's Code, is out now. Just finished the 5th one, Extinction Machine, and about to start the 6th. And there's short stories and audio books, and there's all sorts of Joe Ledger material out there. And the readers can't seem to get enough of them, and I can't seem to get enough writing them. So we're all having fun with Joe Ledger.
Let's hit Flesh and Bone real fast. Flesh and Bone is coming out September 11th.
Yes. This is the 3rd book in the Rot and Ruin series. Rot and Ruin's first, Dust and Decay, and then this one. This one answers some of the questions that kids have been asking about since the 1st book. What's that airplane? What started the zombie plague? What's out there beyond the areas they know? Unfortunately, a lot of those answers aren't comfortable ones. There's some real problems out there. It gets very dark and dangerous, and it's a fun series. And the book comes out September 11th in hardback and ebook.
Jonathan, I won't take up any more of your time. I know you're extremely busy and you have a very busy schedule. I appreciate you spending time with us today, Barry, back today. And thank you very much, and I look forward to reading all your future endeavors.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for tuning in and spending time with us today at DragonCon 2012.